Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to take a look at a small ship that actually managed to emerge out of Endgame. Sort of. A film that has been dubbed by some as a ship killer. However, it also gave some ships life, and for many shippers, canon holds very little bearing over whether their ship lives or dies. Today, we will be examining Parley, the pairing of Harley Keener and Peter Parker. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over to chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. Now, on to the pairing. This one is highly conceptual, and one of those ships where the couple in question have not truly shared any screen time. In this pairing's case, they were in one scene together, but nowhere near each other. So how exactly did this come about? Well, for that to make sense, we must first meet the players, starting off with Harley Keener. Some MCU fans actually forgot about Harley Keener, the young boy who played a large role in Iron Man 3, when he helped Tony repair his armor and also come to terms with some of his anxiety and PTSD issues that were manifesting quite intensely during that film. Mileage varies in how effectively the latter plot was handled. Comic fans were likely unsurprised to see the character, or at least those fans familiar with Earth SD-01, wherein Harley Keener teamed up with Vic Stark after he was defeated by the Mandarin, and helped him defeat his arch foe, eventually becoming the superhero Iron Lad. Some fans felt that this multiverse story was being incorporated into the MCU, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe pulls from many corners to construct its narratives, alongside doing its own thing. Harley in this film is, well, a child, and one in a film at that. A bit precocious, very helpful, but charming, and not overly abrasive or grating, though mileage varies. Some cannot stomach the helpful child character at all. Still, fans initially believed that the character must be there for a purpose, and have some deeper meaning. But the character vanished after this one appearance, only to appear 6 years later in Avengers Endgame. Next up, Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, of your friendly neighborhood variety. The Peter Parker of the MCU is tweaked to make sure he fits into the narrative, though personality-wise he stays true to Spidey's past. This Peter Parker is a young man striving to do good. He is earnest, loyal, nerdy, and feels things extremely deeply. He is still apt to make mistakes, but does his best to learn from them. While still awkward and a little insecure, he is coming into his own and has proved himself a hero many times over. He has a close parental relationship with Tony Stark, lovingly dubbed Iron Dad and / or Spider Son by the fandom. We've done a video on this. You know the drill. If you missed it, card link. From his Iron Dad, he has learned even more about great power coming with great responsibility, even if some are salty about how much of his tech he has gotten from Tony. So what was the scene that these two shared? Well, these two appear together, or rather are both at, Tony's funeral. Although for Harley, there were some articles detailing who exactly the kid at Iron Man's funeral was. So how exactly did shippers get from point A, sad funeral scene, where the two never interact, to B, ship? These two belong together. While in actuality, while Endgame has brought the ship to the forefront for some, a small percentage, it has been around for longer, but largely because of announcement that the actor playing Harley would be returning post-Infinity War, though some were already there making leaps. For as mentioned, for many, this is conceptual. Some couldn't believe that Tony had simply not been in contact with Harley, particularly after how close he was with Peter, and so developed the headcanon that the two had been talking all the time, in one of the Russo brothers' favorite places, off-screen, which in fandom terms falls into the realm of Fanon. However, when creators do it, it becomes canon, though some will never accept that. So what fanons have been built around these two? Well, some center around these two having met beforehand at some point, probably during one of Stark's teaching reprieves, as a large part of Tony's character both in comics and the MCU is preparing and working with the next generation's great minds. So some engineered scenarios for these two to meet in that capacity. The length of time one can go back varies. Some take it as far back as Age of Ultron, as it had been retconned as canon that Peter was the child that Tony had saved in Iron Man 2, which also gave fans some wiggle room to play with a new first meeting time for those two. There were also scenarios where Tony had to adopt Harley through plot convenience-itis, and he would then meet Peter that way, or fics where Peter was Tony's biological son. And of course, there were the fun secret identity porn shenanigans. Really, because the ship has no on-screen canon basis, though the canon can be used as a support to back it up, it is free to do what fans of these two please, meaning the works vary. Though post-Endgame, a big thread has been these two bonding over the loss of Tony and helping each other recover. What some enjoy about this pairing is that so much of it needs to be charted, and one could essentially develop the relationship from scratch without having to worry about going too far off base, as one already had to leave canon behind to get there. Others felt these two would match, though admittedly much of Harley's personality was generated by Fanon. For many, the dynamic was that of a snarky, confident Harley bouncing off of a shyer but still competent Peter, who can give as good as he gets in the banter department. That these two would be intellectual equals, and what a true treat that would be for them, and that they could bond over their pasts and their shared similarities, i.e. single mothers or mother figures, and parental figure Tony Stark. In the realm of ships, this one is small, to the point where some feel it's almost a fandom secret. You have to be in the know to find out about it. This is not one of those relatively rare pairings at the time of this recording, but a truly objectively rare one. The fact that it needs to be pretty much built from the ground up is unappealing to certain shippers, and some have a hard time getting invested in what looks like it will always be an extremely rare pair. Of course, you never know. Others steer clear of ships with teens. As we have discussed in numerous videos past, ages, or the canonical ones, can be quite a sticking point for certain fans, though others are more than happy to change them in their fix, or are simply not bothered or squicked out. Others, of course, have alternate pairings, in this case almost exclusively for Peter. As mentioned, many forgot Harley existed, as the years passed after Iron Man 3, which already was not the best received of the MCU films. In short, for some, it's too much of a reach. Going off of that, some feel Harley isn't enough of a character to do anything with, and that there are much more fruitful ships to explore. Some don't feel that what is presented in fandom would work, and that the connections are tenuous at best, and full of shipping goggle fancy at worst. Actually, that is not at worst, that's more at middle. Endgame has given these two a tiny surge in interest and a proper ship name. However, it remains to be seen what the future holds. From the Russo's J.K. Rowling style discussions, it appears that Harley's presence was more homage than portend. Side note, there were some who speculated that Peter's role in Civil War was initially going to go to Harley, but that was scrapped when Disney obtained the rights to Spider-Man and needed to incorporate that character into the film. There is no proof of this, and some feel it is an example of fans giving more credit to the interconnectivity of the MCU than it in fact deserves. While some feel the MCU is playing 4D chess and the rest of the world is playing checkers, others will point to loose threads, dropped plots, and plot holes to highlight it's not entirely all planned out. Even the Spider-Man Far From Home writing team mentioned they wrote the multiverse plotline pre-Endgame, so while some want to believe there was a grand design for Harley, it was potentially not the case at all, though anything can be retconned in. For that is the true magic of comics. Is this a pairing you ship? Could you see yourself getting into it? Why or why not? Do you wish they had done something more with the character of Harley Keener? Share all your thoughts down below, and you know the drill, numbered if possible, because I love a good essay comment. Thanks so much as always for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing shipping with me. I always appreciate it. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. There are of course as always more videos coming soon, and a special thanks to all of my patrons for helping to make all of this possible. I will see you all again when I can, so stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.